What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero, because World War III is a really bad idea. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And welcome to our show. It is Thursday, November 12th, 2020. Sure happy it's Thursday. Sure happy it's Thursday. Sure happy it's Thursday. And we've got a lot to talk about today. Mike is in our control room, twiddling the dials and keeping us out of trouble. And as usual, we're going to do news for pretty much the whole first hour, and we'll take phone calls in hour number two. I actually got a lot of emails from people saying that they wanted, they liked more news, less phone calls. I guess they're getting tired of the infighting and the name calling, which I can certainly understand here. So we are going to sort of do more news, less phone calls here from here on out, and hopefully that will improve the quality of the program for the listeners here. All right, so let's get right on into it. And again, each day that goes by, more and more information is coming on out that suggests strongly this election was crooked with a capital C, and you know, people are very concerned about it, and it's moving away from whether Trump or Biden won, and it's becoming a concern of how the American people exercise any control over this government if, in point of fact, the election system can be hacked on such a massive, massive scale here. Now, Rudy Giuliani is out there saying that roughly 650,000 unlawful ballots were cast in Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And he was on Fox Business with Lou Dobbs, and Giuliani claimed that almost none of the hundreds of thousands of ballots were observed by Republican poll watchers, and state election law requires the presence of poll watchers from all parties. And basically, he went on to say what's being said in the mass media, that there is no evidence, is a complete lie, just like they've been lying for years. Now, on Monday, Governor Tom Wolf's office said in a statement that ballot watchers from all parties have had observers throughout the process, and any insinuation otherwise is a lie. And again, it's kind of hard to take Tom Wolf's word on this because of everything that has gone on in Pennsylvania here. Anyway, Giuliani has said the Trump campaign may have sufficient evidence to change the election results in the state of Pennsylvania. Now, what's really interesting is Real Clear Politics is no longer calling Pennsylvania for Joe Biden. Because with the recounts and the redos and damaged ballots and all the rest of it, it's now neck and neck. And without Pennsylvania, Biden is no longer the president-elect because he doesn't have enough electoral college votes here. Now, we have another article. This one is from Natural News, and it's basically saying that the election data is being analyzed, and so far has produced a detailed list of over 500,000 votes switched from Trump to Biden via voting machine software theft, with the heaviest fraud focusing on the swing states. And again, they're not saying which of the election machines was being used here, but a lot of attention is being focused on those Dominion machines right now. So again, something has to be done about this. Now, just breaking today, okay, a Pennsylvania judge, so this is not even going to go to the Supreme Court now, a Pennsylvania judge basically ruled that the Secretary of State of Pennsylvania did not have the authority to change the election deadline 2 days before Election Day. Now, basically, the Pennsylvania judge is ordering the state may not count ballots where the voters needed to provide proof of identification and failed to do so by November 9th. Now, Pennsylvania state law says that voters have until 6 days after the election to cure problems regarding a lack of proof of identification. Now, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court ruled that mail-in ballots could be accepted 3 days after Election Day. Then Pennsylvania Secretary of State Kathy Boockvar submitted guidance that said proof of identification could be accepted up until November 12th, 6 days after the ballot acceptance deadline. And this was all done 2 days before Election Day. So even within the state of Pennsylvania, they're starting to say, you know, this got a little hinky and we've got to fix this. Another story, this one coming out of the Gateway Pundit. Hundreds of pro-Trump IT experts, volunteers, are going through the voter data, and they have identified 300,000 vote discrepancies in Pennsylvania alone. All righty. So apparently there are two large groups of IT volunteers that are going through the data. More than 20,000 absentee ballots in Pennsylvania have impossible return dates, and another more than 80,000 have return dates that raise questions. Apparently the dates aren't really lining up. Remember what I said before about postmarks being very easy to fake, even though they are considered to be a legal document. Over 51,000 ballots were marked as returned just a day after they were sent out. Okay, this is rather suspicious given the U.S. Postal Service delivery times. And apparently 35,000 were returned on the same day they were mailed out. Another more than 23,000 have a return date earlier than the sent date. And more than 9,000 ballots have no sent date on them at all. So it's a mess over there. Over in Arizona, Republican Representative Kelly Townsend has pointed out that the estimated number of non-citizen voters, illegal immigrants who are not supposed to vote but they voted anyway, and says that they're estimating the number of these illegal immigrant voters is higher than Joe Biden's lead in the state. Okay, so it's really out there. Over in Maricopa County, Arizona, the GOP chair, Ray Chorinsky, has been forced to resign for failing to certify the Dominion voting machines, which, as you're aware, are already under scrutiny for various vulnerabilities, as well as flipped votes in Antrim County, Michigan, which they said was computer error. And then when they started looking at the computers, they said, oh no, it was human error. You know, don't examine the computers, don't look at the Dominion machines, it was human error. All righty. So adding to suspicions regarding the Dominion machines is this September 30th report in the Philadelphia Inquirer that a laptop and several memory sticks used to program the voting machines in Philadelphia had mysteriously vanished. Okay. So, yeah, this is the crookedest election in U.S. history, absolutely. Over in Wisconsin, story coming out of Natural News again, a system glitch swapped Trump votes with Biden's, giving Biden an unexpected win in that state. In Rock County, Trump was ahead of Joe Biden by 9,516 votes, capturing 46,649 votes to Joe Biden's 37,133 votes, with 100% of the precincts reporting. And then all of a sudden, the numbers switched. Now, the vote tallies were swapped with no explanation whatsoever, and only the independent media is reporting on this. Current election update. Like I said, Pennsylvania is no longer in Biden's category, if you will. And although the corporate media is not reporting that. But Real Clear Politics is saying no, it's still up for grabs over there, and there's still pending litigation. But if you take out the states that are still neck and neck, if you take out the states that are in dispute, then Trump is ahead. He's got the most states, the most electoral college votes, and the most legitimate votes in history. And he's fighting against the greatest fraud ever. Now, Alaska was finally called for President Trump by the corporate media. That's 3 electoral votes. And apparently they delayed calling it, and I guess they were trying to figure out a way to steal that one as well here. So the president, again, if you take out the states that are in dispute like Pennsylvania and states where there's lawsuits pending and everything, the president holds 232 electoral college votes to Biden's 226. The president has won 25 states to Biden's 19. There are still 6 states in question. Now, interestingly enough, Ron Klain, who's been tapped by Joe Biden to be the White House chief of staff, said in 2014 that elections are rigged. And Klain apparently, Klain apparently made the comment on Twitter in reply to a Vox post on July 14th that said 68% of Americans think elections are rigged, and Klain replied, "That's because they are." Okay. Apparently, the Trump campaign has tweeted out a photo of a no-entry list used at the counting site in Philadelphia, and it's loaded up with Republican names. Republican observers were denied entry. Included in the list was Corey Lewandowski, a senior advisor to the campaign, and he was denied entry to the counting center. Now, Tucker Carlson is still out there, using his platform to get the information out, and he revealed a list of 25 dead people voted in the election, and apparently this was out in Nevada, and Tucker hit out at the media blackout for failing to report on the fraud allegations. Nevada's Trump campaign co-chair doubles down on claim they found fraud, but they don't know how widespread it is. And that, of course, is always going to be a problem. Once you've discovered vote fraud, you don't know how widespread it's going to be. So when you have all these pundits and politicians, mostly Democrats out there saying, well, there was a little bit of vote fraud, but it won't change the outcome. They cannot possibly know, because we don't know where the fraud stops. And anybody who's going to try and steal election, they're not going to stop halfway. They're going to keep going until they've stolen it. They're in too deep. They can't turn around. They're committed. And one has to wonder, to what lengths are they willing to go to maintain the theft? Now, Kayleigh McEnany was out there revealing more affidavits are going to be released, and she's doubled down on the claims of election fraud, claiming votes for Trump were changed. 120-year-olds voted, and as of right now, the oldest person alive on Earth is 112. So, I mean, it's amazing. Biden's claiming he's had this greatest voter turnout in history, but that's including these, people born in the 1800s, dogs, cats, entire cemeteries, and so forth. Another story, this one coming out of Knock Report, talking about diving into the data on the Dominion voting systems, shows incontrovertible proof of the election hack. And basically, they're looking at the work of a dedicated Trump supporter who appears to have uncovered all the proof necessary to dispel this claim that Joe Biden won the presidential election. Now, there's a website called thedonald.win by user Truman Black, and it's not gotten a lot of attention, not nearly enough, and it needs more. Because they've produced the smoking gun the Trump campaign can use to prove the election was hacked. Massive amounts of votes were changed from Trump to Biden. Other votes were removed altogether without reason. This cyber coup is bigger than most of us realized. And again, it shows the danger of having computerized vote machines, which, of course, Bev Harris over at Black Box Voting has been trying to warn us about for years now. Trump has finally been declared the winner of North Carolina, and the liberal media is absolutely out there screaming and crying about that. President Trump has now tweeted that Dominion attempted to alter our election. They got caught. They certainly did. And what's really interesting, somebody got a hold of the instruction manual for the Dominion voting system. And some of the things that are in there are going to curl your hair. Apparently, votes can be ignored if a straight ticket vote is selected. In other words, if somebody voted all Republican down the ballot will be ignored. And this is a setting inside the Dominion software. It will enable, Republican fraud fraud against Republicans, rather. And apparently there's a lot of complex rules that decide how this so-called straight ticket option works. Well, what's wrong with somebody voting a straight ticket? Why should they be ignored? Aren't they legal citizens? Don't they have a right to express their preference as well? Something else they discovered in the Dominion software manual is that network security is very weak because all of the software access keys use the same cryptographic pair. And this gives plausible deniability to whoever potentially decides to mess around with the voting settings. It can't be proven which individual changed the settings since everybody is using the same key. That's a major oversight. Even worse, digital certificates are not protected by password, and the Dominion user manual explicitly says not to set a password. And this enables potential for bad actors to MITM attack data traveling over networks between a precinct tabulator and the central tabulator. And there's more they found from the manual. Hunt down the article. It's at whatreallyhappened.com, and you can find it. Now, apparently, Democrats have put out a call for other Democrats to temporarily move to Georgia for the U.S. Senate runoffs. You know, move down to Georgia, establish residency, register to vote, and vote for the Democrats. And apparently this is going to happen. The runoff will be on January 5th. But this tactic, basically, it could be a felony. And it's certainly very dishonest because all these Democrats moving to Georgia are just going to move back home as soon as the election is over. I mean, that's how desperate they are. Now, to basically prove that there is a there, over in Connecticut, in the State House, okay, the winner of the 90th House District is incumbent Representative Craig Fishbein. Now, originally, the win had been called for Democrat Jim Jinks. And I can imagine the phone call that went on out and said, well, you know, we're sorry you've lost re-election here. And then they called back a week later and said, look, we had a problem here and you're actually, you're still back in. But it does basically document the fact that races were reversed, votes were reversed. Something was going on where the election was not handled properly. All righty, over at Fox News, Brett Baier is basically criticizing the decision desk for estimating Democrats would add 5 seats to their majority in the House of Representatives, which of course did not happen. And Fox News is finally acknowledging 8 days after the election that, well, they goofed. They were overly optimistic. As a matter of fact, the Democrats still have a majority in the House, but it's much less than they had before. Which sort of gets to something else people kind of need to keep in mind. The Republicans picked up seats in the House. They picked up state legislatures. They picked up governorships. They held on to the Senate. It's now 50 seats, you know, waiting for the results of the Georgia runoff. You know, but Joe Biden won, and it just seems very unlikely. People were voting Republican. And somehow Joe Biden, who campaigned from his basement, forgot who his wife was on one occasion, declared he was running for the Senate on another, and this guy supposedly won. I'm not buying it. I absolutely do not buy it at all. Okay, now then. Well, the pollsters were wrong again. All right. Sidney Powell is a key attorney working with the Trump campaign to get to the bottom of the vote fraud situation. And he's now saying the only way to really tell what happened is for a nationwide election audit. That means every single state hand counts the ballots again and conducts a full audit on the election. Don't go through those machines because the machines are completely untrustworthy. Now, earlier, well, actually, we got to take a break for commercials, and we will be back with more news after these few words. Welcome back to our show here, and again, a friendly reminder and a nudge in the ribs that Republic Broadcasting Network is in the middle of a perpetual fundraiser. Unlike the corporate media, we don't have giant corporate sponsors, paying the bills around here because they usually want something in exchange for all that money. So the only way we're going to get the big money corruption out of media is for the little money to unite together and keep us doing what we're doing. We are in a war, literally, for the future of this republic. So once again, the postal address where you can send a check, money order, or if you prefer anonymity cash, is Republic Broadcasting Network, 2251 Double Creek Drive, number 302, Round Rock, Texas, 78664. The phone number where you can make a credit or debit card donation is 800-724-2719, extension 3. The network thanks you. I thank you too, because it's so important what we're doing here right now. All right, earlier in the week, pardon me, we talked about this Million MAGA March scheduled for this Saturday, November 14th in Washington, D.C. And it's going to be marching from the White House all the way to the Supreme Court in support of free and honest elections. And those who agree that Democrats are trying to steal the 2020 presidential election are encouraged to attend, as the Million MAGA March will show the world that American patriots are ready and willing to take a stand against fraudulent election results. I just don't hope we don't wind up in the situation that Belarus did here. All righty, getting on to other political issues here. Joe Biden is prematurely putting together his transition team, and apparently his transition team members include a lot of Wall Street people, bankers, and so forth, and many of the big banks with links to the Biden transition team were major donors to the former vice president, and they're going to want something back in exchange for all of that money. Which may be the origin. Apparently, a new wrinkle in Biden's tax plan is a 5% tax on people who work from home. Remember just a month ago, with the COVID-19 lockdowns, and everybody was saying, hey, working from home is working out really good. And some companies were thinking about making it permanent and reducing their office space. Well, now, apparently, in Biden's tax plan, if you are working from home, you're going to get hit with a 5% tax. So much for not increasing taxes on the people here. Another interesting aspect, this from Front Page Mag, is that 40 members of Biden's transition team are lobbyists. And they are current or formerly registered lobbyists, according to an analysis by the Wall Street Journal. Now, the Biden transition team had sought to limit the influence of lobbyists in setting up the new administration, but that obviously is not really happening. So much for ethics rules here. Now, Joe Biden is tapping Ron Klain, the Ebola czar, we talked about him a little bit earlier in the show, to be the White House chief of staff, and basically said that Ron has been invaluable over the years, and well, all of the other nattering and gromishing we expect from politicians here. Now, Joe Biden is supposedly, the report is that he is going to appoint Barack Obama as ambassador to Great Britain. And this is going to be very awkward for Boris Johnson. And it's going to make things very, very difficult. But that apparently is Barack Obama's reward for going out and campaigning for Biden when Biden couldn't be bothered to leave his basement. Another story, this one is coming out of what's a YouTube video, and it's linked to the front of whatreallyhappened.com. Joe Biden is in contact with the ATF, specifically saying they want to ban braces and 80% lowers. They want to basically take those away from people who like to build guns as a hobby. Again, they're going after what they call assault rifles. I think everybody else calls them sporting rifles, but they're not used all that much in crime. FBI statistics show that handguns are overwhelmingly used in violent crime. But handguns don't represent a threat to the government itself. That's why they're after these sporting rifles, because those are arms that basically stand up to the military when needed here. Another very alarming article, this one came out of takimag.com, and it basically says that we're in a season of by any means necessary. We've seen these shameful, shameless tactics employed by the establishment against Trump, censoring online media, editorializing the news, covering up the law breaking, blacklisting, threats of additional riots, and so forth. And the hope is all of this is going to go away once the election is resolved. But this article is saying, hey, this attitude of by any means necessary may become the new normal. And that, to me, would definitely be another step along the path to the total collapse of the United States of America. We got to take another break for commercials, and we'll be right back. And welcome back to our show here. So let's talk about the media a little bit, the corporate media, rather. And if you go, punching around the dial, and use of the word dial is giving away how old I am. TVs don't have dials anymore, but you understand what I'm talking about. You punch the buttons and you go through the various channels, and all the media are saying exactly the same thing. There was no vote fraud committed by Democrats, and a record number of Americans voted for a president clearly suffering from mental confusion, whose campaign rallies were basically empty. And by the shrillness of their denial that there is any evidence of fraud, it sort of makes it pretty obvious they know there was voter fraud, and their job is to convince you that there wasn't. And it's another reason why the credibility of the corporate media is very much in decline. By the way, as I mentioned earlier in the week, the new limited hangout is, yes, there was election fraud, but it won't change the outcome, which, as I said before, is an unsupportable statement here. The new limited hangout that started appearing today in my email and a couple of other places is that all of the election fraud discovered so far was done by China. China got into all these counting facilities and smuggled in ballots and rigged the machines and everything. And my response to that is, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Because we've been down this road before with Russiagate back in 2016. Okay? China was not in a position to carry out all the massive election fraud we're seeing across the country, but the Democrats were. All right? So anyway, Donald Trump is saying that if, in fact, he loses the White House, he's going to start a digital media company to basically go up against Fox News and become the new conservative flag bearer. And apparently some Trump advisors think Fox News made a mistake with an early call of President-elect Biden's win in Arizona, and that enraged Trump into something tangible to use as an attack on the network. Now, Fox News stock took a major hit today. Actually, a lot of stocks took a hit today. But Fox News stock declined on this idea that they may soon have some conservative competition from Donald Trump himself. And that certainly, I do think that we do need a new conservative voice out there. And again, a reminder to anybody who's monitoring this show on behalf of Donald Trump, CNN is up for sale. AT&T wants to dump them. Jeff Bezos has backed out of the deal. So buy CNN and move it centrist. Okay. Getting on back to Arizona, apparently their Secretary of State, Katie Hobbs, who's responsible for certifying the election results, hates the president and has stated publicly that Trump voters are neo-Nazis. So once again, we find out that people in these very high positions, they're Democrats, they're liberals, and they're unable to separate their personal politics from the execution of their office. And that, of course, is a very dangerous situation. It was almost a hallmark of the former Soviet Union, that everybody there made every decision based primarily on its political impact. which led to things like Lysenkoism, which in turn led to massive famines. Now, Russia is saying it will not meet with any of Joe Biden's representatives until this election mess is sorted out. And they're not going to hold any contacts with Biden, and there are no plans to do so, according to Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov. And they're right to do that. They're absolutely right to do that. We don't know where this thing is going. Very much up in the air here. Over in France, Marine Le Pen is refusing to recognize Joe Biden's victory in the election until all of the legal challenges are sorted out here. And apparently Trump is getting traction with a lot of these legal challenges. He's making progress. The corporate media won't tell you that, of course. And from their point of view, if Biden does in fact lose ultimately and Trump wins re-election, this is going to be an even bigger embarrassment to corporate media than their push for Hillary back in 2016. And so right now they're absolutely dedicated to selling Biden as the president, because otherwise this is going to mean a huge loss of business, because if the corporate media can't steer the minds of the American people anymore, they're going to lose a lot of money, they're going to lose a lot of prestige, they're going to lose access, they're going to become as irrelevant as AM radio in some cases here. All righty, here's kind of an interesting thing. We're going to talk about COVID-19. It's still out there, and it's hitting Indiana very hard. Governor Holcomb has reasserted all kinds of lockdown procedures. Kids in school are now going back to online virtual learning, and it's impacting Claire's church, and people are kind of unhappy about that here. But apparently Joe Biden is already planning to open up America's borders and reverse Trump's immigration policies. He's doing this at the exact same time he wants to throw our country into a strict second lockdown. Now, does that make any sense to anybody listening to this show? You lock down the legal American citizens, the people who live here, in the name of public health, and then you open up the border to all kinds of illegal immigrants streaming across that border, many of whom are carrying illnesses, including COVID-19. It doesn't make any sense at all. All right, story that came out of No More Fake News. And apparently there was a New York Times opinion piece that basically said that all the COVID vaccine clinical trials were doomed to fail because of a fatal design flaw. And needless to say, this story came and went. There was no follow-up because, again, the corporate media is out there pushing the vaccine agenda because vaccine makers are very, good advertisers who spend a lot of money on commercials for their prescription medication. And they do that in part to be able to control what corporate media says about the medical industrial complex. Now, this is kind of major. The World Health Organization has actually officially admitted that the vaccines pushed by Bill Gates and other globalists caused a polio outbreak in Sudan. In other words, the polio vaccine is causing polio. Now, for a while, they were trying to de-link the two. They were calling the illness polio-like, a polio-like neuropathy of unknown cause. But now the World Health Organization is saying, yes, the vaccines were causing the problem. And apparently, children are being fully paralyzed as a result of being administered the oral polio vaccine. And there was a story, I think almost 2 years ago, in which the attenuated polio virus in the vaccine was found to basically return to full potency after administration when it was in the body. But hey, it's a moneymaker, and that makes it okay. Turning to the economic news, how Max Kaiser out there over at Russia Today is saying the U.S. is living in a sea of debt and a storm is coming. Now, basically, he's looking at the student loan debtors who are expecting Joe Biden to forgive their loans, and government audits are finding an open door policy on the no repay loans from the Paycheck Protection Program. Now, all of this money that's being handed out was borrowed from the Federal Reserve, which simply creates it out of thin air. Talk about a scam here. And Max Kaiser says, you know, you look at Steve Mnuchin, you've got Kamala Harris, you've got the PPP scandal. These are all the obvious last breaths of a failed state. And he says, you know, we're Argentina. And he points out Argentina doesn't pay back its debts because it knows another bailout is coming. But who's going to bail out the United States? You know, we're up at what, $27 trillion in government debt? Nobody could bail that out. Over in Iran, the mega South Pars gas field is nearing completion. They have been working on this for a while. It's basically expected to cost 135 billion US dollars now. And they're basically saying the pace is picking up with an increase in the involvement of various Chinese companies who are operating under the U.S. sanctions radar through individual contact-only projects. But basically, they're saying that the South Pars project will be producing at or near fully phase one capacity in advance of the March 2022 completion date. Okay, now turning over to Armenia and Azerbaijan, we're looking basically, first of all, it looks like Azerbaijan came out ahead in the peace deal brokered by Putin. And so we're looking at this article that came out of Southfront, basically saying that Armenia is now in a deep political crisis because they have effectively lost the war in Nagorno-Karabakh, and they've signed this peace deal with Azerbaijan. And despite Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan's claims, the loser is only he who thinks himself defeated, agreeing to the peace deal was in fact the least Armenia could do to salvage a situation which was becoming untenable. And so they've lost most of Nagorno-Karabakh. Over in Nagorno-Karabakh itself, Ariak Harut Yunyan, president of the de facto state of Artsakh, is calling on the region's Armenians to stop looking for traitors and return to the region, and basically says they're dealing with a bit of a moral crisis there. Now, as I mentioned before, this peace deal that has been signed between Armenia and Azerbaijan was the work of Putin, who once again proves that he's not a politician, but a statesman. And that has led to an opinion put out by Russia Today saying that America is no longer the neighbor to every other country on earth because this surprise Armenia-Azerbaijan peace deal is clear evidence of a changing world order. And I would tend to agree. America is showing all the signs of an empire in decline. All righty, now getting to the economic news here. Simon Property Group and Brookfield Property Partners have obtained approval from bankruptcy court to buy the retail and operating assets of JCPenney, which filed for bankruptcy last May. Now, Simon is the largest mall operator in the U.S. Brookfield Property Partners is an entity of Brookfield Asset Management, which is this huge Canadian asset manager and PE firm with numerous entities. And basically these two groups, Simon Property Group and Brookfield Property, are buying JCPenney and other collapsed retailers out of bankruptcy. Nobody is sure why just now, because certainly with COVID-19, the retail numbers are definitely down. There we go. All righty, let's get a little science news here. I always enjoy doing the science news. It's always a lot of fun here. NASA has certified SpaceX to carry astronauts, which is the first for a privately developed spacecraft systems. Now, SpaceX has already launched humans to the International Space Station, but that was a test flight. This Saturday, they're launching a real mission that will carry 4 astronauts up to the space station. And so we're all going to be watching that launch on TV. But this is definitely an historic milestone for NASA and for SpaceX. NASA, under the Commercial Crew Program, supplied most of the funding used to develop Crew Dragon over the last 6 years and conduct hundreds of tests. So, you know, Elon Musk's Teslas may be having problems. SpaceX is doing a bang-up job here. Didn't mean to use that word, bang-up. They're doing a great job. And, you know, congratulations to them. Meanwhile, NASA has explored Mars more than any other agency or scientific group on the planet. We've actually had very good luck on Mars. And they've had multiple rovers, orbiters, probes, not to mention some landers back in 1976. And NASA's hard work has revealed more about Mars than we could ever have hoped to know. But they're just getting started because the Perseverance rover is arriving on the planet. And it looks like NASA is getting ready to put together a sample return mission that will fly to Mars, pick up a bunch of dirt and rocks like they just did on that asteroid, and bring them back to Earth for scientific study. And I hope the lunar receiving lab will become the Martian receiving lab because, again, data that was returned from the Viking landers strongly suggested the presence of indigenous life, which in all probability would not be able to survive here on Earth with the increased temperature and increased pressure, but still caution on, you know, err on the side of caution. So Perseverance is 100 days out, and it's going to touch down on Mars, becoming the next Mars car. And apparently, you know, it's 166 million miles out from the red planet's Jezero crater. The landing is scheduled to occur on February 18th, 2021. And hopefully confirmation will be received back at the JPL 11 and a half minutes later. And I will be delighted if Perseverance actually says, yes, there's life here. Been a long time for vindication. We have to get Dr. Gilbert Levin back on the show for another interview as we get closer to that. Okay, we are coming up on another commercial break here. We're going to go ahead and open up the phone lines, area code 512-248-8252, and we'll be back after these few words. Welcome back to our show here, and just got an interesting email from somebody. We were talking about how with the potential Biden administration going on a gun grab, that gun stores are selling out of both guns and ammunition, and somebody just wrote to say even black powder firearms are now on back order. And I'm not really surprised about that. Okay, the phone lines are open now. Area code 512-248-8252. And we're going to go to Peter in Los Angeles. Hello, Peter. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind today?
Mike, I got a couple things. I'll be really brief. First off, that Million MAGA March on the 14th. I've looked on the web. I can't see anything for Los Angeles or anywhere else around the country. I DuckDuckGo'd it, couldn't find anything. If anybody knows anything, because I will go to L.A., I will do it. I'm sure other people out there will as well. But
well, I'm sure that social media is trying to prevent that from happening. And in fact, there were reports of the nationwide pro-Trump rallies just having their pages deleted. And I mean, it's open warfare right now in social media.
Yeah, which is my next point is you're talking about Trump perhaps buying CNN. There's absolutely no way a President Biden with his backers like Zuckerberg and all the media, Jewish media tyrants and the secret police and the bankers who put him in. There's no way that they would give the SEC approval for the buy. There's no way they would give the FCC approval for this. There's no way they would allow Trump. They're going to hound Trump. If they don't kill him, they're going to hound him into like ruin because they can't have a guy that's a populist that has that can command the support of over 50% of the population. They can't have them out there, and they can't have anybody questioning what went on right now. That's one.
They may be able to block him from buying CNN, but they certainly can't block him from starting a whole new media company from scratch. And
well, they can. Yeah, they can kill him, or they can lawfare him, and that's what they're going to do.
Well, there's already talk about as soon as Biden is confirmed as president, they're going to find a way to throw Trump in jail and just ruin his reputation. These people are playing for keeps.
That's certain. That's absolutely certain. And again, we're never going to have another election ever. It's these the people, the same group of people who print the money, own the voting, the Dominion type companies. They own there's 3 or 4 of them. They own them all.
Well, they'll have us go through the motions of an election to keep up the illusion that whatever is done to us by the government is something that we all voted for. But it'll be sham elections like we've seen in so many other dictatorships.
Yeah, and even the idiots who voted for blue who can't see this will sooner or later, if it's not next election, the one after that, will realize that their agendas, their candidates, what is important to them, mean nothing compared to what it means to the media, the Jewish media tyrants, and the bankers and the secret police who are calling this election.
Okay, Peter, I got to take a break here for station identification. Stay on the line. I'm going to come back to you after these few words. Welcome back to our show, hour number 2. The phone lines are open. Area code 512-248-8252. And we're talking with Peter in Los Angeles. And Peter, I understand exactly what you're saying. There will never be a real election ever again if they succeed in pulling this off because they're going to be afraid to try it again. And we're going to wind up with phony sham elections where everybody is ordered to vote to make it look legitimate. Because once the public realizes the elections are a sham, they're just not going to bother showing up. And again, a hallmark of dictatorships is voting is mandatory in those countries.
Well, Mike, these media guys, they cannot possibly, the mask is off. They won't even let him on Twitter or they'll cut him off. They can't possibly allow him to assume office. So if the deep state secret policemen don't kill him, like Brennan wanted to have the 25th Amendment thing, he's afraid of what Trump could divulge about his completely corrupt, sinister ass. Then the media guys, the billionaires, you think that they can't afford to have their empires go down or investigated or the stock tank? They can't have that. They won't allow this guy to assume power. But the other thing they do, a lot of people don't realize also, just even the way they rig the polls, which make it obviously easier to rig the elections. But think about this: if they're rigging the polls, and of course they said that Trump was going to lose in a big way. They said in a big way. Now, obviously, they carried governors, they carried added to the House, they added almost everywhere. The GOP made advances.
Yeah.
So obviously that was lies. But if you tried to raise money for Republicans in the last 2 months or so, who's going to pour in money? Who's going to, when all the polls are saying they're going to lose in a big way? You know what I mean? Just that one aspect of it, let alone people not bothering to vote or whatever because they figure it's a lost cause. But where does the money come in? Who's going to invest big money if everybody's telling them they're going to lose? And it's false. It's a lie.
Yes, it was a lie. Again, the pollsters are embarrassed because, they were predicting these big Democratic gains in the House and control of the Senate, and it didn't happen. And the Republicans won more governorships. They're in control of state legislatures. Obviously, people across America were tired of the Democrats, and they were voting Republican, which makes Biden's victory even more suspicious.
Yeah, but Mike, think of what could have been had they been able, if the polls had been honest, and people who may have donated big money, but said, "No, I don't want to dump money in a lost cause," right? And they didn't. And so, going into the final stretch of the election, they're starved for cash. I mean, it's really, really bad. But these guys will not allow it. And by the way, if this election goes the way it is, there's no way that anybody will ever come out as a populist again, because only a billionaire could even afford to do it, because I've just explained how they can starve you of funds.
Yes.
So it would take a rich guy to begin with. How many of them are there? And wait until they make an example of Trump and hound him into ruin and jail or worse. So it is on. And sooner or later, these dumbass Democrats, these dumbass blue voters are going to see what they had here. They had a chance, and they let this juggernaut of bankers and Jewish bankers, Jewish media tyrants, and the police state, swing an election. That's all they're going to get from here on out.
They're definitely going to do it. And I guess the attitude is going to be, we don't care if you know we're cheating. There's nothing you can do about it. And Peter, before you go, apparently we had a caller call into the show mentioning that InfoWars has a big report on the Million-Man MAGA March this Saturday in Washington, D.C., and so you might want to go over there for some additional details. But as far as anything happening in Los Angeles, I'm not aware of it. But again, we know that on social media, there's an absolute clampdown on anything that's pro-Trump. In fact, Project Veritas just came out with a new video on the apparently yet another whistleblower has come forward out of the U.S. Post Office saying that they were literally ordered to throw pro-Trump and pro-Republican mail in the trash and to treat all Biden and pro-Democrat mail like it was first class, even though it was all being sent bulk. So, I mean, even the Post Office was compromised on this one.
And Mike, by the way, with this COVID thing, they're going to use that to keep us from assembling.
Yes.
All these lockdowns coming just in time. Anyways,
absolutely.
I know you got other callers, Mike, but...
Okay, well, before you go again, apparently Mike in the control room just mentioned that over at the RBN website, there is an article on the March for Trump that shows all the details that anybody could need.
Thank you. I'll go there.
All right, thanks an awful lot. And we're going to switch over to Steve in West Virginia. Hello, Steve. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah, Mike, I got a couple points. First of all, I haven't heard this reported on your show yet, but I'm going to tell you that there's at least 3 programs that I've listened to who said that Trump had a party on the election eve, and that some of the people at the party got worried that, the things were turning for Biden. And the insiders within the Trump party were all laughing about it, saying, don't worry at all. Nothing's going to happen. You'll see. And I've heard that now on 3 different other radio programs. So I think the cat is in the hat for Trump, and I think he's going to pull this thing out.
Well, I certainly hope so, but again,
a lot of people are worried about these riots. And incidentally, me and my girlfriend are going to the march on Saturday morning. I only live an hour from D.C. It's an easy drive.
Okay.
We're going to stay in Gaithersburg, and we're going to take the bus or the train into D.C. The night before. But anyways, what I wanted to tell you is that, as far as these crowd controls, the U.S. government has a lot of non-lethal weapons technology and stuff like sticky foam, and they could use that on these protesters, and it'd be game over. In fact, it's going to start getting, by the time they really start to protest, Mike, you're not too far away from where we're at, and it's going to drop down into the 20s, 25 at night, 22
yes.
at night. All they'd have to do is take water cannons and soak these people with water, and they'd give up, because it's going to get so cold that the water's going to turn to ice, and it's going to stick to their clothes. They're not going to, it's not going to be like the summertime where they're out all night long, and as soon as they get wet, if they get hit by a lot of water, not just a mist, but a lot of water, They're going to give up.
Well, as long as they're peacefully protesting any effort to soak them with water or use any other even non-lethal devices on them, it's going to look really bad. And, you know, right now the Democrats and the Biden supporters are very concerned about the public perception about this whole process that's going on. And so I think they're going to want to treat those marchers very gently. I think it's going to be more than likely that there will be agent provocateurs there to try and start acts of violence, to demonize Trump supporters, and to give the police an excuse to move on in and treat them with a heavy hand.
Mike, I got one last question,
Sure.
real quick. Quite a while ago, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, you used to have some bumper music on your show. And one song was written by a guy by the name of Shane, and it was talking about the police. Watch out for the police.
Yeah, I think that's still in there in the direct. No, I don't remember the name of it. I'm having to redo the music library because Flash has gone away, and so I'm recoding that page with HTML5 right now, and hope to have it up sometime over the weekend so you can go in and listen to all the music that we've had on the show over all the many years that we have now been doing this.
So can I find that on a website, on one of your websites? What is the name
not
of the
yet.
song?
No, it won't work because you'll get to the page and it will say Flash, has been disabled by your browser. And I liked Flash. I did a lot of good work with it. I did some of the graphics in Lost using Flash, but it was a security nightmare. And we got burned by one advertiser with a Flash ad. And so we don't allow Flash on the website other than what I created, and now I'm having to replace it all.
Okay. Mike, that does prove how long I've been listening to your show, though, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. It's been a while. I started in radio, talk radio, back in 2007. I did music radio much earlier than that. But yeah, it's been a while. It's been a while.
You haven't used that song. That was a great song. You haven't used it on your bumper music for a long time.
Well, if you probably noticed, we're starting to rotate the bumper music a little bit. And of course, on December 1st, we're going to go to the Christmas bumps, first of next month. But come January of the next year, I'll go through the library and see if we can come up with a new selection of bump music to sort of keep things. Let's see. Apparently, Mike in our control room says he has a police song by Shane, and maybe we'll play a few bars of it or something. Anyway, listen.
For the police.
That's it.
That's it. Okay. All right. Well,
I'm going to play it. Thanks, and have a good one.
Okay. Well, Mike just said he's going to put it into the rotation, so you get your wish here. See, it's not true that we're hard to get along with over here at RBN. All righty. Well, Steve, thank you very much for the phone call, and we're going to switch over to Mark in North Carolina. Hello, Mark. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah, Mike, two things. One, I don't think Trump is going to need his new TV network. I think he is going to be reelected after this is over. I mean, everything is now starting to go. I shouldn't say his way, the way for this country. More and more information is coming out about the steal, including not only the mail fraud, but also the computer fraud. And the other thing I want to say is we were talking about Indiana having a so-called uptick in cases.
Yes.
Which is really nothing. Somebody might have had some contact or something with it, or maybe they have a cold, or they had a cold, or something like that, or if they had the flu. It means absolutely nothing. These PCR cases, and yet the stupid governor there, your dumb governor, okay, is supposed to be a Republican. I guess pretty conservative, because Indiana is a pretty conservative state.
Yeah, we're a red state.
Lockdown takes the kids out of school. You guys ought to really get in his butt. I mean, that's ridiculous. This is not a dangerous virus. This is basically a cold. They're using this virus. The real virus is a virus that's destroying our country, okay? And that's what they're using this for. Not only this country, but other countries too. right? That's why, and if Trump does lose, it's because of this virus, because the virus is really the Bidens, the Harrises, Bill Gates is a virus, a two-legged virus. By the way, I put that on my YouTube show today, which by the way, I send you a copy.
Okay.
And my YouTube video. And these are the viruses. Mike Bloomberg, he's a virus, a lot of viruses. And Dorsey, the whole bunch, Zuckerberg. So we gotta, we gotta be prepared to take these people on. And by a so-called Republican, and he's not the only one. The other clown in Utah did something similar, put a statewide mask order on too, and so did this idiot in Idaho. And on top of that, in Texas, this clown is pretty bad too. Okay, so I mean, it's Abbott. He's really bad news, and people got to start making clear to these Republican governors, and he's not making it easier because this gives Biden, confidence. The other thing about Biden is he's such an idiot. He doesn't realize if he does get in there, he's going to have support by maybe a fraction of the country. He tries to put mandatory lockdown, as he's talking about, mandatory vaccines, mandatory masks. He could have a war right there and then because people are going to be pissed off if it is. Nobody in red states are going to consider him president. Okay? Even though North Carolina, unfortunately, has a Democratic governor who did manage to get re-election, we have a legislature that's totally Republican, and we have a lieutenant governor that's a Republican. He just got it, as a matter of fact. He just was elected, Mark Robinson.
Yes.
Black Republican, too, a good guy. Really, I like him. I voted for him and all. And we're not, so this is basically still a red state. And they're not going to get away with it. People are ready to fight. People are on razor's edge right now. And,
I get that. I get that in the email.
Earlier in InfoWars. And Matt Bracken was talking about that earlier in InfoWars. They are pushing us to war. That's all they're trying to do. And if Trump does get reelected, which I believe he will, you're going to see Antifa really rear up. And, they push too far, they're going to be in for this. They're making mistakes of their lives. They try pushing it into the red states. They try pushing it into outside of big cities. They're going to be hurting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
This is where most of your veterans are. Hardcore vets too. This is where most of your hunters are. I'm not a hunter myself. I love animals too much. But one thing about a hunter knows how to track. A hunter knows how to set traps, wait in ambush.
Yep.
The type of people they'll be dealing with if they try.
And hunting rifles are actually far more lethal than assault rifles.
They are because they have better accuracy.
Well, they also carry bigger ammunition. I mean, assault rifles are designed to wound rather than kill, and hunting rifles are designed to knock down big animals.
I don't know, Mike. A 223 is a pretty powerful bullet, But
I know it is.
You might be. Huh?
Yeah, but the thinking behind that is that if you wound an enemy soldier, it takes 3 soldiers out of the battle, the wounded one and 2 to take care of him. Yeah.
That's true. You're right there. So it's hard to say. But whatever it is, you're messing around with a lot of people. Okay? And
yes.
If this idiot Biden understood that, at least, if he did take charge, he would understand and, walk in a low profile. Now, Matt Bracken also thinks they may try a false flag before this election process is even over. They may try a false flag, say right-wing, so-called white supremacists carried out some kind of an act. So people got to be careful about that, and we got to make it clear that we're not the ones that are going to start violence. Okay? No. I mean, I'm not a right-wing fanatic anyway. I'm kind of right in the middle. I'm a populist. Okay? I'm one way. I'm not. I don't go along with any philosophy 100%. But
Well, let me just intrude in here. We're almost at the next commercial break here, but as I pointed out the other day, we're over a week after the election with the corporate media proclaiming Biden the winner, and we still have not had a Republican burn down a building. And that is certainly in stark contrast to the way the liberal Democrats all acted after Hillary Clinton lost back in 2016.
But you see what they tried to do with that supposedly kidnapping of that screwy governor there in Michigan. I mean, they tried that.
That was a setup.
Okay,
that was a
still
setup.
won't shut up about it. It's when it was just an FBI sting. That's all it was. The FBI up to the usual garbage. So, no, that's, like I said, it's like we got to be careful about that because we want the public. The public has to be on Trump's side. Can't be, you don't want Biden and his people to be have sympathizers.
All right, well, Mark, I got to let you go. Mark, I got to let you go. I'm sorry. We got to take a break for commercials, and we will be back with more phone calls after these few words. And welcome back to our show here, and we're going to go back to the phones to Joe in California. Hello, Joe. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind today?
Hello there, Mike. Just to piggyback on what your caller from, I think, West Virginia was saying about that party that the Trump campaign, the Trump was holding on election night. Steve Bannon couldn't be more confident. He's saying, on his program War Room Pandemic, which is on Newsmax at 9 o'clock, he's saying Trump will be inaugurated to book your hotels. So.
Well, again, I hope they're right, not because I'm a huge fan of Donald Trump, but I'm definitely afraid of Biden and Harris and a liberal takeover of our country, because that will be, opening us up to a socialist revolution. And apparently, Biden's already under a lot of pressure to accept a socialist agenda. And we all know that if Biden is inaugurated and becomes the next president, he's really not going to do a whole heck of a lot. He's probably going to stay in the White House basement, and all these policy decisions are going to be made by his backers and his handlers and whoever is the most powerful in the Democratic establishment.
Right. And Hunter will surely be back in business. Mike, just to borrow a phrase of yours, about those who are targeted, who are under threat, they should be wearing their Kevlar underwear. I just want to paint a scenario. Maybe I'm exaggerating, but what if we hear about Antifa and how they have these training camps. What if I've heard talk of Antifa assassination squads.
Yes.
Now, what if you have a Republican-controlled Senate by one or two members? Wouldn't you think that the senators from democratically governed states where the governor is a Democrat should really be wearing their Kevlar underwear?
It's not impossible to suggest. Truth sometimes mirrors fiction, and a lot of people have been talking about the Pelican Brief. I'm very concerned that sometime between now and the meeting of the Electoral College, there will be an attempt on Trump's life so that the Electoral College will just throw the thing to Biden. After the Electoral College meets, and if in fact they elect Donald Trump to a second term, shooting Trump would only put Pence in office, and hopefully Pence will not make the same mistakes.
Mike, I tend to believe in the conspiratorial view of history. And yes. we always hear that when a new president is elected, he's shown the Zapruder film. Now, if you believe, I believe in that, but I'm scratching my head. If this is actually the case, how is Trump able to be, pushing this and to not have conceded yet?
Maybe he's just not that impressed by the Zapruder film, and I don't think anybody actually sits the presidents down to show them the Zapruder film, because anybody at that level of government knows that Kennedy was killed by a conspiracy involving multiple players. That's what the House Select Committee on Assassinations actually concluded years after the Warren Report. And the majority of Americans know that Kennedy was assassinated by, a group of insiders and one foreign power. So I don't think it's necessary to actually show the film. Anybody who's in that level of government knows their life is at risk. That's why there is a Secret Service protective detail around the president. And again, this goes back when Abraham Lincoln was first elected president. He had to sort of sneak into Washington, D.C. because of all the death threats against him.
Yeah, but how much trust can Trump put in the Secret Service? Because
my understanding is he's got his own private security there as well. And you're right, trusting the Secret Service may not be a good idea because they certainly stood down for John F. Kennedy. And remember, Indira Gandhi was assassinated by her own protective detail.
Right, by a Sikh member, right, of her security detail. Just one quick thing, Mike. You mentioned yesterday this election fraud official who resigned from the Justice Department. He was actually an Obama partisan, and he was involved in that whole IRS Patriot Group scandal. So he resigned because he believes there's no fraud because he's a partisan Democrat. It wasn't because he felt like Barr wasn't going to go far enough in this investigation.
Well, we really don't know what was going on inside those offices here, but as I've mentioned before, I think Barr is going to put on a stage play of having an investigation, and then he's going to reassure everybody that if there was election fraud, it didn't really affect the final outcome, which of course is totally unsupportable.
Mike, I just had one last question. I wanted to ask you this. These people who are so preoccupied or climate extremists, whether it be Klaus Schwab at the World Economic Forum or others, do they actually believe in this agenda, or is it meant to achieve another overriding goal?
Well, as a matter of fact, if you read my ClimateGate page, there's a whole bunch of quotes at the bottom where people are saying, it doesn't matter if it's true, we're going to use it to reshape the world. Anyway, Joe, I got to let you go. We got to take another break for commercials. We'll be right back. Welcome back to our show here. We're going to go back to the phones now. Another Joe, this one in Tennessee. Hello, Joe. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind today?
Well, just first of all, for a guy that sits on the phone, waits to get on, when a caller says, just one more thing or one more thing, I wish they would just say one more thing and then let the next caller go. But some of these guys, they say one more thing, you get all excited. You're like, all right, I'm going to be ready to go. And then it's another thing and another thing. You know what I mean?
Problem.
So if you're going to say one more thing, try to just say one more thing and leave it at that. Just a comment. Because like I said, you wait on the phone, you kind of get, I don't know about others, but I get a little antsy. I want to go. Anyway, I'm kind of enjoying this whole fiasco. I must say, I hear some people call in a little bit demoralized, and I think this whole thing is working out great. I mean, a month ago, Biden was supposed to win, even though it was a fake poll, but it just did seem like it, that by like 20%, 10%. So now we have an actual big contest where I think Trump won by a landslide, and they cheated him out of it. And as they say, you can't cheat out of a landslide, and I don't think they're going to get away with it. And the way Trump acts, I mean, after the election, he golfs 2 days in a row. He really is acting like a boss. I mean, he's not out on TV like rah 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 it. He's sitting there getting rid of the defense secretary, putting his people in place, making these moves. I'm very, very confident, and he's acting very, very confident. And part of the reason I love what's happening is because the middle America has really been getting alienated by this. I mean, it's waking up people. The media thoroughly discredited itself. Fox News, there's like a scattering of the Israelites of the Republican viewership of Fox, and they're going all over. I mean, Newsmax ratings are up the charts. Steve Bannon War Room, everybody's paying attention. People are getting off Twitter and going to Parler. People are getting off YouTube and going to BitChute. People are getting off, Facebook. This is such a great thing that's happening right now. And I don't want people to be, I don't think we should be demoralized at all. This is like an impetus for real change. And I say it's an if, but I really feel confident that they cheated. I mean, they shut the election down in the middle of the night, the first time that's ever happened. And Trump knew it was going to happen. He's been saying this is going to happen. Now, there's one story I read that disappeared real quick. It was about the skiff in the executive office building that was manned by the military. They were monitoring the election, and then the Democrats the next day were complaining how it was a violation of the Hatch Act, using that money in a campaign. And that tells me something right there, that the Democrats something was up with that whole skiff, if you know what I mean, what they were monitoring. A lot probably more sophisticated than we know as of now. I think Trump's got him. I personally do. But even if he doesn't, Biden is going to be so discredited that half the country is going to be alienated. They let him try. I hear all this like they're going to go socialism and concentrate. That's laughable. You can never get away with that with the way this country is. And at the same time, by having now maybe if you had like somebody that came in and won a great election, and won it well, and maybe you could implement some of these programs. But now, I mean, Biden's presidency is going to be pretty much screwed, excuse my French. And meanwhile, if Trump does lose, he's going to be on the sidelines with this extreme amount of power. I mean, and I don't believe, so I just think that this is a very good situation. I'm actually enjoying it. I'll enjoy it a lot more when Trump gets sworn in. But for now, I mean, the amount of discrediting, the amount of exposure, it's wonderful to watch. I don't know what more you could ask for.
Well, I'll tell you, once this whole fiasco is over, if Trump is in fact in his second term, I'm going to definitely be putting my focus into reforming the election system. Because that is actually more important than whether Trump or Biden wins. Unfortunately, if Biden wins and the Democrats are happy, they will absolutely refuse any attempts to change the election system from which they have profited so handsomely. But something does have to be done, because if Trump does run again in 2024, which they're talking about apparently, the election fraud is going to be 5 times worse than it was in 2020.
Well, and I think that's the impetus for that is definitely that's moved way up the list. This is not going to happen again. The Republicans aren't going to let this happen again. And that's the other thing that we really need to do is get rid of the Republicans that, they're a lot of the neocon non-Trumpians are showing their hands too. I mean, that's another one of the great things that's happening here. Sometimes you need to see who's in the foxhole with you, especially when you're going to be fighting, and you want to see who's really on your side. And we're all getting a nice example of that in this whole fiasco. And like you said, I think before this election, wherever, the whole thing about voter integrity was down on the list. And after this election, it's going to be right up there in the top for you, Mike. So I think you should be pretty happy about it yourself,
Well, again, if we can get it accomplished here, and, if Trump does win re-election, I'm definitely going to write him a letter saying, look how close you came because you didn't deal with this issue back in 2017. And it's got to be dealt with.
And then they started making it a civil rights act, saying it was voter suppression.
No, that was part of what they did. Yes.
With it.
Yeah.
Huh? Yeah.
They made it a states' rights issue, and this whole idea of no voter ID, and now they're out there estimating that the illegal immigrant voters numbers are actually higher than Biden's lead. They're not supposed to vote. Period. End of discussion. And I think there are grounds to go to all these states that have gotten rid of voter ID and say that they basically betrayed the public trust by allowing illegal immigrants to vote.
Yeah, I just think I'm with you on vote. They have to do something, maybe with like blockchain or just, I think what you might find is if these Dominion voting machines turn out to be crooked, we might be all going back to paper ballots everywhere.
I think we need to do that. And if you've read my article, How to Have Honest Elections, no central tabulation centers and no computers are in there, because it's not just Dominion. I would suggest, or I suspect, that all of these commercial election machine companies are crooked. They're compromised. They're financially tied in with powerful political interests here. And I'm already seeing attempts out there to say that the election fraud was either caused by China, or it's actually Donald Trump's election fraud and it backfired on him. I mean, they're thrashing around. You can tell they're afraid.
Yeah, they need to do something like an election voting ATM where you get a receipt, and then you can go back and prove it. So, but anyway,
that was a big part of the True Vote system. That was a big part of the True Vote system, and unfortunately, the inventor of that system met with a rather suspicious death. Okay, so the phone. We have several open phone lines right now. If you've been waiting to call on in, area code 512-248-8252, and we're going to go to Tom in Florida. Hello, Tom. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah. Good day, Michael. Aloha. What's on my mind is this Ezekiel Elliott. Emmanuel with his brother, Rahm Emanuel. This guy's talking about at 75 years old, you should give up. Basically, his like Logan's Run. This guy, I think he should kill himself first. And bumbling Biden is already 78 years old next week. And you got this bumbling Bernie. Bernie wants a labor secretary. I want that job, Joe. And so he's going to be the labor secretary. So it's going to be an open Senate seat in Vermont. And all these dumb Lily nutheads up there are going to vote for another liberal schmuck. Or are they going to actually get a Christian as a senator in Vermont? Mike?
Well, if Bernie Sanders moves from the Senate over to the Labor Department, it is up to the governor of the state of Vermont to appoint a replacement. They don't have another election.
Well, let me ask you: do they got Christians in the state of Vermont, or how does all?
Oh yeah, a lot of churches up there, all over New England.
Okay, so how are all these Jews getting in these positions in these Senate seats if they're only like 4% of the population in those states? I mean, they can't put a good Christian conservative in any of those states. Those New England states can't have one conservative, maybe other than New Hampshire. All those other, you have that Pocahontas in Massachusetts, and all these freak shows and all these liberals are wiping it. Look, I got an idea, Mike. Why don't they take 5 million illegals out of California, stick them right there in Vermont, or let's stick them right there in Boston? Instead of we're going to bring all the Hondurans and Guatemalans right into Boston. Let's bring 5 million of those in there. What would happen then? Boy, would they have a different tune in Massachusetts, wouldn't they? They wouldn't be elected.
Well, I don't know. It doesn't seem to have had much of an effect out in California. And I'm hearing from people in California, they're disgusted with the illegal immigrant problem. But again, if there's one lesson we have learned from this election season, this 2020, it is how massively corrupted the entire election media system has become. Even the post office, was compromised.
Who's been calling your show for the last couple of years telling you about the illegal invasion of this country? I've probably more than anybody on your show let you know. And I have. And let me tell you, Mike, I have family members that were living in California. They were making great money back in the 90s, late 90s. They can't even do it in the block trade. A block mason in California right now is making like $12 an hour. They were paying these guys $26, $28 back in the late 80s, Mike. Mm-hmm. They literally ran all the white males out of the block trade. They literally ran them out of the electricians, plumbers. All these trades, all the whites have fleet. Mike, every day, 6,000 white Americans are leaving California. If that doesn't tell you what's going on in the rest of the country like a microcosm, ready to explode. It's like a bottle when you put a cork on and shake it. What happens? When you have seltzer water, you shake the bottle. It's going to explode.
Well, you lose the cork.
That's exactly what's going to happen if bumbling Biden gets in there. This country's ready to put a cork on it and watch it explode. And all these illegals that keep pouring in there, they didn't call it California no more, Mike. You know that. They call it Mexifornia, Calexifornia. It's destroyed. Yeah. Costa Mesa was 68% white when I was there. Now it's down to like 38% white. Okay? all those beach towns. Mike, I hate to tell you, and I hate to bring this movie up. And how many children you go, oh, that Tom's crazy. Well, Mike, there was a movie, and the movie is kind of radical. I'm sure you've seen it with Edward Norton. Did you ever see that movie with Edward Norton? Norton and Furlong, the guy Furlong was in it with the young kid. I forgot his first name.
Eddie Furlong. Eddie Furlong. I actually worked with him on one movie. Yep.
Okay. Did you? Yes. He was in a movie when he's a young kid. Did you ever see the movie American History X?
I don't think I did.
Well, if you ever watch American History X, if you watch that movie, you'll be really perplexed, but it's so truthful. And the one scene where the father was a firefighter, and he's like, they're actually, it looks like Malibu Beach, it looks like Costa Mesa. And all that was beautiful in the 80s and even up to the 90s. Now you go there. I went there in 2009, Mike. I tell you right now, I thought I was in a foreign country. I thought I was in Central America. I'm not lying. Watch the movie.
When Claire and I were living in Hawaii, we witnessed the same transition. When we first moved there, people were kind and helpful and very, very friendly. And then all of a sudden, the immigrants and refugees started being poured into the state, and the decay set in, because if you import the third world into your home becomes third world. That's just the way it works.
Absolutely, Mike. Thank you for saying that. And Mike, one more thing, and I'll let you go. Cause what Joe is right. I'll let other guy get on. Well, let me tell you, Mike. I have a friend who lives in Portland, Maine. You know what he told me? If you're a white in Portland, Maine, the federal government basically tells you in the winter season you're going to pay for the heating oil. But if you're like from Somalia or all these, they turned Portland into a big black city now. And
yes.
They got a lot of blacks like Minneapolis. And the federal government's actually paying for all their heating bills and their electric bills. The federal government's paying their bills. Well, if you're a white Anglo in those cities, you're going to pay up your nose. But if you're an illegal alien or you're just, like a refugee, you get everything basically free. You don't pay a damn dime.
That's what's attracting all the illegal immigrants here, and why they always vote Democratic is the free stuff. But free stuff isn't free. Somebody else somewhere has to pay for it all.
Yes, the majority's paying for it. What is the white Anglo-Saxon males and females? But Mike, like I said the other day on your show, and maybe I did get off the rails a little bit, but I was basically saying these white Anglo women and those New England states, I don't understand why they're men, because I know the men think a little more logically. Why do you say, hey, listen, you're pretty soon you're going to have to become a fiscal conservative, because who's paying for all this? Who's paying for all this nonsense? And all these women, you can't do that to the refugee, the cages. Look, they even blamed Donald Trump for the cages, Mike, which was Obama and Biden.
That was Obama. That was Obama who did that.
Biden. And this guy Ezekiel Emanuel, they're saying that everybody should die at 75, give up their life, basically. And then you got all these witches in the United States, millions of witches trying to put hoaxes on conservatives, Christian, Republican.
That didn't work.
What kind of crap is that?
No, the country's in decline. We're going to see a lot of craziness out there.
Yes, we are. Anyway, Mike, thank you for taking my call. I know you got other calls, but look, like I said,
yes, I do.
The Sons of Liberty against the Sons of Tyranny. The Sons of Liberty against the Sons of Tyranny. That we know that's going to happen. So thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you for the phone call. We're going to switch to Tony in New York. And Tony, I'm going to have to take you through the next commercial break. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike, thanks for everything you do. You have absolutely the best show on the computer or anywhere. And,
thank you.
I started a Reddit account. It's r/WRH, where friends of the show can go on and, carry on their personal, not attacks on each other, but a dialogue with one another, and maybe engage in a productive debate, because it is extremely frustrating when I rely on your show for a lot of my news that I get, because I know it's fairly accurate. And you have people like Dave from Boston who really monopolize a lot of the show.
Can you give us the name of that Reddit one more time?
r/WRH.
r/WRH.
Dave and Tom bring up some really good points, but a lot of times they spend repeating and fumbling.
Yeah, they do.
And, we need more debate on this show.
All right, Tony, I'm going to have to let you go here. All right, because we got one more commercial break here and then a couple more callers I'm going to try and get to. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the show here, and a quick note for all of you astronomy buffs, of which I am one. This week is the Torrid Meteor shower. So if you have clear skies, and especially if you get up before the sunrise, it might be worth gazing at the sky because it's one of the more interesting meteor showers during the year. All right, let's go back to the phones here to Joe in Nome. Hello, Joe. What's on your mind today?
Yeah, the video I sent you on World Trade Center 7, I was wondering if you'd done any analysis other than your first impression that you mentioned. It occurs to me that you should be able to alter the soundtrack so that the explosions are compensated for the distance that the film, was picking up.
Yes.
And so that would prove, if you could synchronize the apparent explosions with the soundtrack, that would prove that the film was, taken up close, like I said, up close and personal.
Well, the demolition of Building 7, and for that matter, both of the Twin Towers, has pretty much been proven time and time again, certainly by groups like Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth. Certainly a lot of foreign scientists have looked at the information and said there's no question it was a classic controlled demolition down into its own footprint. And I don't really think at this late date that we need to belabor that point any longer because like the John F. Kennedy assassination, most Americans think there was something hinky about 9/11. So, Joe, thank you very much here. We're running out of time, and I'm going to switch over to Al in Canada. Al, what's on your mind today?
Tom had me laughing with his freak show comment and Mexifornia.
Yes.
But Mexifornia really piqued my curiosity because I think I phoned it in before, and I told you when I used to do service tech work in the United States, in the food industry, I'd go to pack houses to look at their machines, and they were all Mexicans.
Yes.
And you know as well as I do that probably none of them were like up here legally. We have a similar thing that happens up here in Canada. And on Ontario especially, you go to Leamington or Exeter. Yeah. Leamington's the tomato capital of Canada. That's the place where Heinz was closed down after William Buffett bought Heinz. So, it goes to show you like how crooked that guy is. Anyway,
yes.
The same thing. I actually witnessed this with my own eyes. Someone calling ahead, before the pack season starts, looking for people, because you can actually do this legally in Canada, right?
Yes.
And so he wanted these certain people, and they had just disappeared into the ether. They just disappeared.
Yeah.
And I asked what happened. He goes, that's what happens up here. He goes, Leamington is little Tijuana.
All right. Well, Al, I got to let you go.
Mike, thank you.
Yeah, the music is playing here. Stay tuned for John Stadmiller. I'm sure he's got lots of interesting things to share with you. Please spread the word of Republic Broadcasting. Spread the word of whatreallyhappened.com. Please donate. We are in a war against the corporate media, and we need all the help we can get. We'll be back tomorrow with the lovely Lady Claire. So have a good evening, and aloha, America.